the prayers, they were answered. The build is deterministic. This is wonderful news. Um, Last time I left us, I was saying like, oh, yo, gotta do all these tests, get the actual build, working and functional and online functioning, and it does. It's woo, yay, yeah, yeah. So all those tests that I made, this would have been like 2 weeks ago now. Uh, it works. So I can from the editor, it can like launch up a build. It can connect between the two of them. Like it can. There were a lot of things that ended up actually having to get done to get that stuff working, right? So it ended up taking me about a week alone just to finish getting all of the that stuff that I said in that video was going to be really simple, getting that done and fleshed out 100%, right? So uh, let's go over what was happening back then. We had the build tests. So the idea behind this was that I needed to run tests between multiple clients effectively, and I specifically needed to run tests in the build to try and see what was like happening in builds that wasn't happening inside of my editor. Right? What ended up being the case was that when I was doing these tests, I was skipping too much, you know? So there was this idea that, oh, sure, I can just, host a server and then host a client and then have them connect, whatever. But I was taking shortcuts when I was taking those actions, right? There's things like lag, frame rate issues, right? Um, so like specifically frame rates being different inside of the editor and a build, right? That I needed to replicate that weren't getting replicated when I was doing all of these tests exclusively inside of the editor by itself, right? Before I had tests where it was just like the one application was booting up, two instances of the game. But now, I have two applications booting up their own instances of the game. And that produced replicatable errors, which is great. That's what we want. We want to see errors so we can fix them. But it wasn't getting all of them. It turns out that not doing the exact actions that the player does means that it wasn't replicating all of the issues that could have potentially popped up, right? So, for example, uh, the action of going like booting the game, being in the actual like lobby, right? The main menu effectively, and then waiting a second and then making a lobby appear, right? Or like doing the setup process for a lobby where you have to click a button, you have to click on the actual like host button, and then the other side needs to scan for lobbies and then connect to one of those lobbies. All of those things actually introduced, they had bugs, right? This was stuff that I just wasn't testing for. And I was just hoping that, like, oh, when I play it, it doesn't really look like there's anything wrong. There was things wrong. So that optimism was rather foolish. So now the game is deterministic, right? All of my tests are passing. This is wonderful news. And what this means is that my rollback netcode, right, or my lockstep netcode, works. That's it. Uh, so up until now, the game that I've been designing to be multiplayer has not been working, right? It hasn't been multiplayer. Huge problem, very bad, but it is now. So yay, we did it. I'm very happy about this. Uh, Little backstory: when I was working for a company for about 7 years, there were multiple points where we tried to implement some sort of a lockstep netcode, and desynchronization and lockstep issues plagued us the entire time, right? Over multiple different implementations of netcode. Oh, the text. Um, and so being able to actually have worked on this by myself just for about I think like 4 months effectively of whatever this has been, um, and getting it done properly, I'm very happy. Yeah. So then I made some builds. We tested it on Steam. I probably have like another Steam update to the version. My build pipeline is still working, which is nice. And now I was moving on to gameplay, right? Uh, but yay, update. Wow, it worked. Um, I was moving on to gameplay, but now, but before I could do that, I needed to implement a settings UI, and that took a few days. You can see it here, settings, and this took some time for multiple reasons. One, I needed to come up with a design for it, like how it should look, right? We can actually look at this in game, which will be a little nice. Two, I need to actually implement the way that I was doing the saving and loading of these settings and applying it to everything in the game. Three, uh, I there were issues with some of this stuff, right? So the volume sliders. This isn't done, by the way. These highlights and stuff are only on a few things. This is highlighted incorrectly. Whatever. But these things are affecting Fmod audio. There was an issue, right, where apparently my entity worlds and my mono behavior world, right, they actually have different Fmod runtimes. So any settings that I apply here need to actually get applied to my entity worlds when they get created. This might end up being an issue because technically every single one of my entity worlds has a unique runtime. So we've got the base runtime from just mono behavior's world, and then every time you enter the lobby, there's a runtime. Oh, that runtime gets deleted when that lobby gets closed, sure, and you join a game, and then go back to the lobby, and then go back to join another game, and then go to single player, and then host it, and then go back to single lobby again, etc. So, this might produce a lot of memory, or it might cause issues where, like, if you play a game, go back to lobby 70,000 times, you're gonna run out of like Fmod runtime IDs or something like that. I'm just gonna assume that nobody's gonna do that. Whatever. What else? Oh yeah. So issues with the settings menu. I think it's actually working pretty well. But you'll see that I made them on Tauruses, right? So part of the challenge of this UI actually, was the fact that this is a 3D UI, right? Buttons usually aren't. When you're making a UI, you kind of want it to be on a plane, right? You don't want any particular object to be curved. You don't want like clickable elements to be curved away from each other as well. So just kind of setting this thing up and working correctly was it was a challenge. But I mean, the way that I've done it is kind of fun. So you can do things like this. You can actually like so like in the game I could is it this slider? Oh, not that one. This one? Yeah. So we could I liked the idea of having this like the settings UI being like full of stuff and scrollable. But we're not there yet. So maybe I'll have like a shop where you can do that or something. That's a good idea. Yeah. um what else? Oh yeah, also these things, right? I mean, they're sliders that are going over a curve. Um it's been a little hacky, but I do need to do like some sort of a. If I wanted the click detection to be like perfect, then I'd need to do like kind of a proper raycast to see where they are on the surface. But right now it's kind of hacky, so if you drag the cursor like upwards, you can kind of see that it snaps. And the further you go, the weirder the snapping is, because there's kind of like a circle around each of these, and it's like detecting like which one's the closest to, and then what's the yeah, some stuff. But yeah, these work. The implementation for the actual settings themselves is also pretty sick. So we can have a look at that. I just updated this, so hopefully this isn't a problem. So I made my own settings class. So this is static settings. We have different static getter setter values here. So volume master, volume music, volume FX. Every single one of these calls this update. So when you set them, it'll call update, and when you get them, it calls get. Right? And these operations themselves are accessing a J object. So I've got everything in JSON. We can go to the settings file itself. Hopefully that's... where did the settings get saved to? I want to show this off because settings are a very cool thing. And a lot of games don't really do settings in a way that I appreciate, right? If you look at a game like Factorio and... okay, I guess it's mainly an issue just with Unity, right? Where the default recommendation for Unity is to use player prefs, right? For a lot of your settings. Two things. Player prefs is... it doesn't really let you store unique objects, which is kind of annoying. Two, on it saves the data into different, very weird spots, depending on the platform. Particularly on Windows, it saves the data into the registry. And I'm going to assume that they wanted to get rid of that, and it's just like the very obsolete implementation at this point, because they, can't change where you used to be saving the settings. But I wanted my settings saved into a file, right? I'm a big fan of going into games like Factorio and stuff and being able to actually just edit the text file of the settings themselves, which I have. Ta-da! Yay! And if you change one of these sliders, right, I can go back to settings, and it's updated. Yippee. So, that's cool. Big fan. And I'm doing this by just using JSON. So we have a J object. This is the actual session settings. So these are the settings that the game is using during its runtime, right? Whenever a value is changed, so we have the update method. If the value does not equal the existing value, then update the session setting value, set it dirty, notify anything that's listening to actual changes of these values. And this set dirty method, what this does is it sets the flag to dirty, and then it runs, it checks, okay, this is a little silly. It sets itself dirty, it checks if it's dirty, right? And if saving is allowed, if saving is not allowed, then it'll return. Otherwise, it kind of locks the check. It sees if there's an ongoing save task. If there's not an ongoing one, then start one. Otherwise, just let that other one finish. Because the actual save task itself, where it does save, this thing checks dirty itself, right? So the idea is that so we change a value, it starts the saving task. If we change a value again while that thing is saving, when that save task is finished, it's going to see that it's dirty and then save afterwards, right? So that's nice, relatively clean implementation. I'm quite happy with it. It is writing a lot of writing to text a lot. So I mean, it's probably better if I just do this once on the game close. I should be relying on Unity smoothly exiting, but I like seeing files updated in real time, and I'm not editing these settings. I don't think anyone's editing these settings very often, so that's nice. What else? Yeah, so the only other important things is that when you initialize settings, right, you can use this, so you can make static methods get executed before scenes have loaded or anything like that. So I need to do that to make sure that the resolution settings are actually applied before everything boots up. So we init, we load in the default settings. So if I make a game update and I add more settings into the game, this is where they're actually just going to get kind of stored inside of the J object, the session settings. Then we try to load the settings from the save file. We pass the settings path for every single child. We just every single child of that big J object, right? We just kind of apply it over here. So we just replace. So that means that any settings that aren't in the save file won't be replaced, and so they'll get the default settings. If there's an exception, we clone the failed settings to settings underscore corrupted.json file. So that's this is just like for more testing stuff. I doubt this will happen very often. Maybe somebody will find a use for this. And then we set default settings. Then we allow apply. We apply the settings, and then we allow save, and we set dirty. So when you boot the game, it will actually overwrite the save file once, and so this will store the default settings, which is nice. Allow apply and allow save are two flags. So we saw allow save before down here in the check dirty. So if we don't allow save, then this is so that while we're setting up this kind of setting up the settings object, any of our applies aren't actually going to get saved, right? It's so that we can save them all at once. This is just like an optimization thing. And this allow apply, well, whenever we set a value, right? And apply all settings is a little cheesy because what I do is I go over every property inside of the settings static class, and if it has a getter and a setter, then I just apply the get value to the set value. So that just effectively gets the value from the current settings and apply and does set, right? And if allow apply is on, then it actually kind of applies them, right? So we so for example, when we apply a refresh rate ratio, then it actually calls the Unity set resolution function and sets up the resolution and the refresh rate and the full screen mode and stuff, right? So it does this for everything. And so yep, this is a really nice clean static settings class. Obviously you have to access that somehow, so settings UI, you can see that here. This is just it's got a bunch of different values, and then all of these different things here are just calling functions on this settings UI, and then that's calling functions on the settings static class. Nice and simple. Yeah. And yeah, that's it. So that's settings, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. This is definitely the nicest implementation of settings that I've ever done. I've done a few. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's probably enough for this video. I might go over what I've been doing next in the next video. But for a sneak peek, I'm trying to actually get into gameplay, right? So what we have here is a bit of a lobby, just a work in progress. And then today is mostly going to be initial gameplay when you actually go into the game. So first steps, right? I'm trying to make that really, really clean and really smooth. Yeah. And you can see the map gen doesn't generate on this map anymore, which was a little bit busy. It was busy before. Yeah. Oh gosh, there was so many other things actually. But I can't go over all of those. Anyway, goodbye.